So welcome everyone. If you're rejoining me from previous sessions that I've had the past several months, welcome back. If this is your first session, I'm glad to have you. So my name is LaManda Weston. I am streaming from my home tonight in Greenville, Tennessee, up here in the East Tennessee area. So this session is kind of go like my previous sessions. This is part one of the Mediterranean style of eating. You will hear me use the word diet from time to time. I personally like to use that word, and we're trying to really get away from using that word. But it kind of makes some of the information flow a little better by using it. But when I say diet and lifestyle, I'm talking about the same thing, okay? So this is part one. So part one is going to be a little bit scientific and kind of a little bit of the history behind the Mediterranean style of eating. So I just want to throw it out there beforehand that it may not be the most exciting where we're talking about meal planning and different food groups and that kind of thing. But I think it's always important to establish a background on anything you want to try or include in your lifestyle, in your daily lifestyle. So this is kind of the way this first part's going to go. So I tried my best to not make it so analytical so we can kind of, have a nice conversation about this. I personally don't want to talk about all that scientific and analytical stuff very much. So I'm going to try my best to kind of get us all on the same page with that. Throughout the session, if you have questions, same kind of format from my previous sessions, drop those in the chat box. And I will take periodic breaks and have a stopping point throughout the presentation. And I will have a part at the very end to answer those questions. Okay, so those of you who've been with me before, I leave a good amount of time at the end for us to kind of have a conversation one-on-one and for you all to ask specific questions. So these are some of the goals that we're going to have as we go through and talk about what exactly is the Mediterranean eating pattern, okay, or lifestyle. What exactly does it mean? So we're going to kind of hit on all these topics here. And like I said, some of it may be a little out there, but we'll get through it. So how popular is it? So here we go. So the Mediterranean eating pattern was the 5th most Googled diet back in 2018. Okay, the first was keto diet. So back in 2018, this is what was the most Googled that people were trying to find out more information about and figure out if they can include this in their day-to-day. So interest in the Mediterranean diet is a good thing. Okay, this diet was rated as the #1 best diet overall by a team of nutritionists and health experts. So it is nutritionally sound because it does include a diverse amounts of food. Okay, it doesn't really exclude anything. If it's excluding anything, it's making sure you're getting that nutrient or that supplement somewhere else. So it's not something that really is an elimination diet like so many have been in the past. And here it's just showing you some of the recognition that the Mediterranean diet has gotten in the past in different areas. Okay. And here on the right, it's showing you the different food groups that we're going to be talking about in each session. Okay, not just tonight, but in the next 3 parts as well, of what the Mediterranean diet includes. Okay, so you can kind of see and judge by the food groups, the vegetables, fruits, grains, dairy, proteins. These are the major food groups that this diet covers. All right, and I hope this works. We're going to see. So I wanted to show you all this little website. This is kind of where you can kind of get an estimate of how much Mediterranean diet you're already including in your everyday life already. A lot of people don't realize that you're kind of already probably doing some of the things already that's in this eating pattern. So let's see if this works. It does. And I can put this link in the chat box at the end if you all want to go around and play with it on your own. But I just wanted you to see it. It's a really good resource. So all this does, it asks you 9 questions, and it kind of goes over the foods that you already eat, maybe, and see how much of a Mediterranean diet you're already including. So here, I'm just going to go through this really quickly so you can see how it works. In a typical day, what's your vegetable consumption look like? So normally, a lot of people don't tend to eat that many vegetables, not green leafy vegetables. They may eat a lot of starchy ones. So we're going to say right here in the middle somewhere. Okay, so you would just click that and it goes to the next one. So fruit, okay? How much fruit do you think you eat? Maybe you eat once or twice a week, okay? And then whole grains, okay? Pretty much all my grains are whole grains, or about half my grains are whole grains, so we'll go half. And then it's asking about your wine consumption, because wine is a part, or it was established as part of the Mediterranean eating pattern, but of course, you know, there are substitutions that can be made with that. So let's just say you prefer to drink cold soda or wine, because that's a big thing in our U.S. diets. So fish and seafood is also a very important aspect, and that's why we have our own session note that goes over this, but we will hit a little bit on it tonight as well. So just kind of going over some of my responses. I try to eat fish at least twice a week, okay? And then legumes, beans, and pulses here. I eat bean dishes at least twice a week. And then nuts and seeds. I enjoy a handful most days. Kind of fats, I use lots of olive oils, okay? And then it's talking about your red or processed meats. So you can say generally once a week or less. And so when you get to this page, you can sign up for the newsletter if you like, but you don't have to. You just can scroll down, and it'll tell you here your results. And it'll kind of give you an idea of, a little funny idea here, of kind of where you are in the Mediterranean diet already. This is a website, you can feel free to peruse it. It goes over a lot of different things, but I've had a few people that sign up for the newsletter. It'll send recipes and cooking tips and all kinds of stuff to your email. So you can do that. But this is just a little neat website to go and kind of judge where you are in that diet. There's that. So we're talking about this particular way of eating, okay? It is referred to as the Mediterranean diet, okay? It's really a style of eating, okay? That's why we don't really like to use the word diet. It is a lifestyle. When you're incorporating or trying new foods to get health benefits out of it, you're really changing your lifestyle. So it's based on traditional foods, based on people who live in these countries here surround the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, that's how it kind of got its name there. So you can see some of these countries: Spain, Greece, Italy, Egypt, Libya. All these kind of are influenced by this. Okay, so the foods consumed in different countries and regions in this particular diet, they will differ sometimes, but the pattern, no matter what region or country, have these things in common. Okay, so we're talking about all these things, all these foods you see here on the picture. This is the baseline, the foundation of what this eating pattern is. Okay, so I had a couple people say, well, you know, I'm allergic to seafood and that kind of thing. What can I do to substitute? There are things that you can do to substitute, and we'll get into substitutions, I believe, in part 3 and 4 more. But the biggest part of this you'll see is that seafood part. So if you're not a fan of seafood, if you have allergies to it, you may not get the full benefits of it because you're leaving out certain nutrients and minerals that comes in seafood. All right, and this may look like, if some of you remember, our old food pyramid, okay? That's what a lot of people think of when they see this, but this is actually a pyramid they built for this Mediterranean diet to kind of show you the food groups of how important they are here. So you see here, by consuming plenty of healthy foods, they have positive health benefits, okay? Most of us know that. So these are things like our fruits and vegetables. You can see our whole grains. You can see fish and seafood, olive oils. Okay, a combination of all these is what makes them beneficial for our health. Okay, people ask me, well, can I just eat a certain amount of each section and still call it a Mediterranean diet? Not really, not really, no, you can't. Because what happens is each food gives you something. It is, if you're not on, if you're not taking supplements, like people who are vegetarian or have any other kind of vegan diet or vegetarian diet, they take supplements. So I have some vegetarians who say, hey, can I try this diet and just leave out the seafood part? So this diet really works off of each other. Each food group works off of each other. So if you can find a way to combine some from each group, you really will have better results. So now we're going to kind of go with some history on this, okay? I know nobody wants to talk about history parts, but like I said in the beginning, it's very important to know how this got established, how it can benefit you, okay, and how you can include it in your day-to-day life. So we have to find out, we have to start at the beginning to get to the end part. So to kind of sum some of this up, this style of eating, we know a lot about the relationships of diets and the foods that we eat, okay? We know that there is a clear relationship between diet and health. Certainly lots of factors influence both, and we are constantly learning more about each one. Each year, there's something that comes out with a different dietary guideline about what foods are better for certain health benefits or reduce certain risk factors. So we know that there is a correlation there. So in the early 20th century, there was not really a clear idea about diets that impacted our health. They really didn't have a very good idea. So there was this study done of travelers and scientists who observed lower cholesterol levels and lower heart disease rates in countries where typical health eating patterns were mostly vegetarian. So they saw a trend that, okay, there's this people that are excluding a number of food groups and they're having some very good health benefits. So let's study that a little bit more. Okay. So that's what this little arrow is doing here. Correlation between food and our health, and then how it all mixes in together. And like I said in the beginning, some of this stuff is very scientific, so I'm gonna try my best to kind of summarize it, okay? So we don't get too scientific because we're not scientists, okay? So back in the 40s, there was a physiologist did a study, okay? He developed a hypothesis that, you know, habits were related to heart disease and chronic conditions and all kind of other detriment health conditions, okay? He did this in several different countries here, as you can see. So eating habits could be protective against these conditions. You know, he found out, oh, you know, if we limit how much we have of this food group and increase the amount we have of this food group, guess what? Heart disease goes down, cholesterol goes down, chronic condition symptoms go down. So there was a study that did this and found this out that, you know, hey, it works. So he did it in these countries here. And pretty much this is, you know, observations were made that, you know, across each country, there were differences, of course, depending on resources, depending on funds, depending on climate, because it affected how foods grew. So it really depended on the country itself, the specific results, but the overall study found a correlation that all these countries had the same effects when it came to limiting the bad foods and increasing the good nutrient foods that we need. Okay. So all this is showing here is, it's just kind of going over what I just said here, that this study to show that a decrease of cardiovascular disease did occur when we limited those trans fat foods or processed foods or very high in cholesterol foods. If we limit those, guess what? We got those health benefits that we were talking about. So when you talk about dietary fiber, okay, across countries, what they saw was that types of fat and the types of foods that were consumed across countries, okay, we're talking about saturated fat intake. We're talking about that was higher among some of the European countries. And then in the US, while lower, okay, in some things, we were very high in the amount of consumptions of meat, pastries, and fruits. So a lot of the high fat foods. Okay, cereal and wine consumption was very high in countries like Italy. And then olive oil and fruit consumption was high in Greece, okay, along with fish and soy products. There was large amounts of that in countries like Japan. So we're talking about how those dietary fiber intakes differ across our country. And it's important to look at this because, like I said, when people establish a diet plan or a lifestyle, you want to know exactly what's been done, what has worked, what hasn't worked. Okay? That's all it is. It's just you gathering knowledge to kind of make better decisions when it comes to your health. All right. So after following the participants and following these studies in these different countries, over several years, researchers found relationships between fat intake and heart disease risk. Okay, so those saturated fats was related to development as well as death from CHD, which is our coronary heart disease. So while high in those bad fats is what we call them, was associated with decreased risk, okay, was associated with increased risk, I'm sorry, for mortality from the coronary heart disease. So over time, research, has evolved, and those countries that did that study and the findings support a protective effect on health and those dietary habits categorized by those Mediterranean countries. So I know a few of you reached out to me through email and said that your doctors or medical professionals had said, hey, try the Mediterranean diet, which I was very shocked when y'all told me that, because I personally had only heard about it a couple of years ago, and apparently it's being recommended now by medical care professionals. So I think it's a good thing to get this background information, so we all are on the same page of how it came to be. And again, it's always important to get all that information for our own benefit. Okay, so here's one of those very scientific areas here. So the basis of this slide is to just show you dietary patterns rich in plant foods protected against risk of death from CHD. So all that means is there were several countries that saw a decrease in CHD because they were mainly eating plant foods and not eating red meats or processed meats and things of that nature. So there was a decrease in those negative health benefits. All right, so when we talk about these, what we're talking about here is how research has continued when it comes to trying to reduce certain health conditions. So we talk about this. This is one of the studies they did. This is what we call an intervention study, and it followed the Mediterranean diet, okay, on the prevention of CFD, or cardiovascular disease. And the study included over 7,000 men and women, okay, who were at high risk for the cardiovascular disease. And, they did this study and all that stuff, and they found out that over a period of up to like 4, almost 5 years, participants who followed both types of Mediterranean style of eating had reductions in these particular health conditions here. So over time, they did get those health benefits. Now, just like with anything else, you start this diet tomorrow, are you going to immediately see results? Probably not by this weekend, no. But with anything, consistency is important. You all heard me say that several times in some of my sessions. So this is something that's why we call it a lifestyle and not a diet. This is something you're adapting and you're going to input into your day-to-day life, okay? So it's a lifestyle. You're molding your lifestyle around this so you can get those health benefits that you need. All right, so when it came down to this last study they did, okay, and just to kind of sum this up for you, because this is one of those very analytical slides as well. So there was a lot of evidence to support that eating this way of eating, I should say, was associated with reduced risk of overall mortality, okay, and all these others listed here. The big amount of evidence was found with the ones that have the asterisk next to them. So the ones with the asterisk, they saw the most evidence that if you follow this way of eating, that you will definitely see a decrease in these negative health benefits, okay? They saw people's diabetes. Some went away, some decreased their A1C. They saw that people were no longer in the red section of developing cardiovascular disease or coronary disease, okay, or any of these other things. There was a lower risk of developing certain cancers. So all of these are very good health benefits, okay? But again, people ask me, well, I've been doing this for a couple months and my A1C is still high or my blood pressure is still up, they were getting very discouraged of not seeing those immediate results. And this is why we have to go back and remind them, this is a lifestyle. This is not something that you can get those good health benefits out of just like that, okay? This is something where if you're consistent and you're doing steps every day towards, you know, what you're eating and other factors that we'll talk about, then you're going to see those results. All right, so here you have this little wheel, and what it's showing is the beneficial to your health here, the factors that are beneficial. So here in the middle is the diet, and then on this orange part here, it's showing you what it can do. So inflammation decreases, immune function goes up. That means that you're able to fight off viruses and diseases a lot better. And then you have, can't read sideways, resistant to stress here goes up, okay? LDL-C goes down, that's like your cholesterol, okay? Insulin sensitivity goes up. So all these are positive health benefits here. So we just mentioned cholesterol lowering effects. Cholesterol is a big issue here in the US, okay? Because of all the fatty and processed foods that we have access here to, cholesterol is a big deal for both men and women, okay? It doesn't really single out any particular gender, but it's the foods that we eat where it's so heavily impacted by. So this is one of the benefits, because the Mediterranean diet limits how much cholesterol you intake, okay? Your cholesterol levels, that could possibly be something you see happen, you know, when you go to your next checkup within the next few months if you eat it on a consistent basis. So low consumption of milk, meat, and butter, okay? So saturated fat down, unsaturated fat up. So all those unsaturated fats, like our olive oils, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, that kind of thing, and we'll talk about that. We have our own little part 3 and 4 that goes over some of these. So this is what this diet does. So when you're eating this, you're having a low consumption of these, okay? You're not eating a lot of the red processed meats, the high fat milk, okay, the butter. I know we're here in the, Tennessee. We're in the South, and I know some of you are from my southern states too. We love our butter. If you're like my mother, you stockpile it when it's on sale. So I understand the deal with butter, and I'm a firm believer in not eliminating. But if you're really seeing that your
butter's awesome.
Somebody say something. Did you say butter is awesome? All right, so now we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about fiber. Okay, with any type of diet or eating pattern you do, fiber is going to always be an important part. Okay, fiber is what helps our digestive tract keep going. Okay, so it's a very important part. When we are trying new foods, it's also the first sign that you'll notice that maybe you're sensitive to certain foods, because maybe it's got too much fiber. Okay, some people are very sensitive to that. So on this particular pattern, this is the amount that you'll have of fiber on this if you follow this pattern to a T, but there's some flexibility here. So 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories, okay? This helps lower your cholesterol level by intaking this much fiber, okay? Usually your fiber will come from a lot of your beans, legumes, that kind of thing, nuts and that kind of thing. It's where you find a lot of it, okay? It will come in some of your seafood, depending on what kind it is. But you just have to read the nutritional label for that, and we're going to go over that too. So that's one thing to remember when it comes to fiber. Okay. So now we're going to switch and talk about some other little nutrients here. And I always mispronounce this word, so I'm sorry, even though I've practiced it so many times. Okay. Phytosteroids, okay, and I probably butchered that, and I've said it so many times, and I still cannot, my brain just won't register that, so I apologize. So we're talking about those. This is what we're talking about, okay, protection against oxidative stress and inflammation. A lot of chronic conditions people have tend to follow, inflammation tends to follow those, okay, whether it's arthritis, whether it's some people have other inflammatory issues or joint or muscle issues. So inflammation is, okay, probably one of those chronic conditions that's mixed in there with a lot of the others. All right, so what is oxidative stress? So when you have, it's an imbalance in the body pretty much, okay? So these things down here called free radicals and our antioxidant defenses here go hand in hand with scale. Okay, so this can lead to tissue damage and increased risk of chronic diseases like our cancers and dementia and cardiovascular disease, as you can see here. So we want our radicals to go up and these to go down. So that's what this means. And like I said, I know this is very scientific, okay? So the best way to understand this is that our bodies generate these radicals, okay, based off the food that we're intaking. So if we're constantly, say we're eating, fast foods all the time, or we're constantly drinking sugary drinks, okay, there's none of those in there. So you're not getting any of those defenses to fight off any of these diseases, if that makes sense. So not saying that, somebody who eats out all the time or eats processed food all the time is going to have any negative effects, but your chances go up of fighting off these diseases and cancers if we're increasing our intake of these certain foods. Okay, antioxidants, and most people know about these, okay? These are things, in this style of eating, it's very heavily there, okay, in all the foods. There's not one food in this pattern that usually doesn't have any antioxidants in it. So you're going to be getting quite a bit of those if you're following this to, a strict eating pattern. So the antioxidants come from foods, of course, like you see here, fruits, vegetables, olive oils, beans, nuts, all that kind of thing. So studies have shown that an inverse relationship between increased antioxidant control intake and lower heart disease risk, okay? So there is science behind that. If we get more of these foods in, okay, that have the antioxidants in them, lowers our risk again of all those negative health conditions we don't want. So B-carotene, vitamin C, E, selenium, phytochemicals, okay, all that goes under what antioxidants is. So if you're reading a label and you see some of these, that's what they are, okay? A lot of times the labels won't say antioxidants on them, they'll label them like this, so that's what that means. All right, omega-3 fatty acids, okay? I'm sure a lot of people know about these. There for a few years, it was a very big deal that people were taking their fatty acid tablets and that kind of thing. So, because it was shown to lower those inflammation markers, as you can see. And then our trans fats, okay? A lot of products now are marketing their products with zero trans fat on the labels and on the packaging, okay? Because they're taking that stuff out and they're wanting to get that information out there to the public and say, hey, our food doesn't have this in it. So it's making it more accessible to people to buy certain foods, and that's clearly labeled on the packaging. All right, alterations in the microbiome. So this is one of those scientific slides. So here again, I'm gonna try to summarize this for you, okay? So gut, where you see where it says gut there, what it's showing you in short chain and health benefits, what it's showing you is, okay, the easiest way, gather these in your food groups, okay? This is what the short-term benefits will do, and here are your health benefits, okay? So we're talking about this, it's modifications to the bacteria in the gut, okay? Studies in which obese participants were randomized to a Mediterranean style of eating, participants experienced a shift in those gut microbials. So when we talk about that, because they have a high intake of fiber, particularly those insoluble fibers, okay, an increase in bacteria, okay, this bacteria is able to produce short chain fatty acids that conveys health benefits, okay? So pretty much, to sum that up for all my scientists out there, pretty much when you're eating this pattern, okay, you're eating your seafood, you're eating your whole grains, you're eating your vegetables and fruits, okay? When you're sticking to that particular pattern, these nutrients here are going into your food, they're already in your food, going into your body, and they're producing what we call a short chain reaction here, and including these as well. So what this tells us is that it's going through your digestive tract, it's producing those health benefits, such as those anti-inflammatory effects you want, lower risk of cholesterol, all of that, okay? So this is like pretty much a science class now, but That's pretty much the best way to sum it up for you, okay, without getting too technical. All right, so the modification of cancer's risk. So we already know that, or I talked about that, how this can, this way of eating can reduce your risk of developing certain cancers. So here we're talking about reduced cancer through, usually when people are following this pattern, weight loss will occur because you're not taking in as much saturated fats, okay, as you normally would if you weren't following this pattern. So you're increasing your fiber intake, okay, all those chemical compounds we talked about, and then in your fruits and vegetables and whole grains, all that stuff you're taking in. So that's why the biggest part of that is they've seen is the weight loss part. When you reduce your weight, you're decreasing that insulin sensitivity, okay? You lower your chances of becoming diabetic. So we see that these food groups here is what these three bubbles come out to, and these are the benefits over here out to the right. Okay, if that makes sense to you. All right, and usually this is where, if we were in person, I would do a little puzzle game with you all. But since we're virtual, we'll just talk it through. And this is where you all can feel free to put answers or responses to questions in the chat box if you like. So when we talk about putting it all together, okay, what do we mean by that? What do you all think we mean by that? Just give me a couple responses in the chat box there. If you were just sitting in a session and you just heard everything I just talked about, and I say, okay, we're going to put it all together, what does that mean to you? I'll give you all a couple minutes to respond. It doesn't have to be a lengthy response. Okay. Meal planning, the takeaway, applying it to our life. Okay, great. Okay, I'll give you some answers here in a minute. The food plus the health benefits. Hopefully learn how to make meals. Okay. Combining overall health, wellness, and exercise. Wonderful. Okay. All right, let's see what it says here. So power from the combination of healthy foods, and this is more than a diet. Okay, like I've been saying from the beginning, this is very more than a diet. Physical activity, you're enjoying your food, socialization, seasonality, and local foods. All of those incorporate this particular eating pattern. Okay, you still have to include some type of physical activity in your day-to-day. Okay, I'm a firm believer, just get up and move. It does not matter if you can't start with 30 minutes a day, start with 5 minutes and slowly increase it. You can do 5 minutes in the morning, another 5 in the middle of the day, another 5 at night. Okay, there you've done 15 minutes for that day, and then gradually increase it. It's recommended 150 minutes a week. Okay, that's hard for some people, especially if they're not very mobile or they're not used to exercising. Okay, so I always say just start. Okay, a smart start is still a start. Yep, follow a diet and keep consistent. Definitely, Marcia, that's a great point. This is not an instant cure. Like I mentioned before, I have people that will tell me, I've been doing this for several months and nothing's happened. Well, it takes a while, okay? You've gone from how many years of your body not getting those nutrients to a couple of months of you just starting to develop a pattern now. It'll get there, okay? But yes, consistency is key. All right. So here's some tips for you. And what I will say is we will dive more into a lot of these in the next few sessions. This part one was very scientific, and I apologize for that, but I feel like it's very important to share that information. So tips for adopting this type of eating plan: lots of vegetables, okay? And we're talking about a lot of our green or leafy vegetables, okay? Not so much the starchy vegetables. Okay. Use small amounts of meat. Okay, if you're going to have any type of chicken or red meat, okay, they want it to be like a small amount and really focus your amount on the seafood meat, okay, which is twice a week. using your healthy fats like our olive oils, okay, and then having fruits for sweet dessert. And then we'll go more, like I said, all this is stuff that we'll go in more into in each part, but this is the gist of some of the strategies to use if you're thinking about adopting this plan. This is the dietary guidelines for Americans, okay? So this includes guidelines for recommended amounts of foods at different calorie levels, as you can see here. So if you're following this plan and you say, hey, you know, I want to do it on a 2,400 calorie level, okay? So it kind of gives you a guideline here of what you should be eating from each food group. Okay, dark green vegetables, okay, 2 cups or 3 cups, sorry. And then, as you can see here, it goes over each little food group. And this is something you can Google. If you just Google the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, it will pull up the latest edition. Is the easiest way to do it. Yeah, Christine, if you just Google it, it'll pull up. It should be the first result after you press the search button. Yeah, we don't have any on hand or anything to send anybody. Yeah, and this is just a portion of this right here. There's more to this. So this is just a screenshot right here that's on this slide. So that's why I said to Google it, and it'll give you the full page. All right, so this is just kind of summarize what we went over, okay? So this is part 1, and we've gone over the health benefits with starting this particular eating pattern. We've gone over the high intakes of fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, peas, seafoods, and nuts. That is one of the highest requirements of following this eating pattern. We've gone over that it's more than a diet, it is a lifestyle, okay? So when it comes to anything that you're willing to try when it comes to a diet, as you all call them, it is a lifestyle. Because more than likely, it's going to be something that your family members or friends may want to join in on, or if you have people living with you, okay, they're going to probably be affected by it too. So it's definitely a lifestyle. All right, here's some references for you. And I want to put this on here just so everybody would have it. So this is part 1 tonight. And I wanted to put the schedule on here. So the next part is called Exploring the Flavors. That is where we actually dig deep into comparing different foods from different countries, including the U.S., and portion sizes. So we go and look over how the portion sizes in the U.S. Versus different countries. And we go over, I believe we go over the nutritional values and labels in that section as well. So that's why we start to really dig down and say, okay, this pizza in the U.S. is very different than the pizza they make in Italy, and how it compares to ingredients and that kind of thing. Part 3, we go very heavy into fish, seafood, beans, and peas, okay, the nutritional values from those, how to substitute if necessary, how to create certain dishes with that, okay. And nuts, seeds, and olive oils is the last session. And I have handouts for each of these other sections where we will go over like certain spice blends, how to make certain sauces, and different things like that that I will drop in the chat box as a PDF on each section, so you will have those. And I'll also put them on our Facebook page for those of you who can't download them. So I just wanted to have, if you have not registered for the other sessions, I'll leave those open. I used to give a deadline, but it's a lot easier for people just to leave it open because people were emailing me at the very last minute. So they will be up. So go on Facebook under the event section and register for each one. Okay, if you sign up for one, it does not register you for all of them. All right. All right, so you all know what time it is. It's your time. And I'm going to stop recording so we can have a conversation.